All right, sports fans, you are in luck. It feels like it's a Friday sporting edition of your feel-good breakfast show. And in fact, South African football legend Lucas Radebe called the book Vuvuzela Dawn by award-winning authors Luke Alfred and Ian Hawkey a fresh spotlight on an exhilarating journey and some much-needed reminders of how sport has enriched lives and opened minds in South Africa over the last 25 years. Now, this book features 25 inspiring South African sports stories that helped shape our nation. And here to chat about the book, please welcome one of the authors. Luke Alfred is in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
Picking up the book, I had to flash to, because I was very interested as to what the first story would be. And reading it just kind of already builds the narrative of what this entire story is going to be. For me, at least, it fascinates me when it says, you know, Vuyani Bungu's story. He took his sweet time trying to decide whether boxing was for him. And one of 6 children, he grew up in a street with no name, and his house, number 3414. And that is a beautiful way of starting to tell the story. But tell me about where it happened for you, the inspiration to write this book, and the name, essentially.
Well, look, the periodization is important. Mm-hmm. So the period we look at is the post-democratic 25 years in South African society and sport. So 1994, democracy, 2019. The book came out a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. The inspiration was we really wanted to tell some uplifting and upbeat stories about contemporary South African sport. South African sport is often in newspapers and on social media for all the wrong reasons. The Proteas are now 9th in the World Cup table, 1 point above Afghanistan, or 1 place above Afghanistan. We've just heard that the national soccer side lost to Ivory Coast and now have the challenge of beating Namibia, which is by no means, you know, settled to progress in the AFCON. And then there are all the issues around South African sporting administrators, SASCOC, cricket, rugby, etc. So we wanted to tell some stories which made us feel good about ourselves as a nation. And then you asked the question about the title. Well, it's a combination of things. Dawn signifies new things, new beginnings, new days. And Vuvuzela is the ultimate new South African icon. We became famous for that in the World Cup. So we thought we'd marry the 2 words, and so we came up with Vuvuzela Dawn. I must add that we really struggled for a title.
Really?
We sickled for a title for weeks and weeks and weeks. We didn't like anything that we proposed.
What were some of the other ones?
Oh, you don't want to know. But it's, a title is one of these things that you know immediately when you've got the right one. Yeah. You know that you don't have the right one for a long period, but we didn't know what the right one was. And then suddenly we came up with Vuvuzela Dawn, and, you know, it's a eureka moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've chosen, I think if you're choosing 25 specific sports stories, that must be quite a difficult task. And you tell stories from Bafana Bafana's legendary win of the African Cup of Nations in 1996, that fabled 438 Proteas victory at Wanderers. You tell the story of Caster Semenya, the twin World Cup victories. Even Kamstaldraad you touch on in the book. What was the process of selecting these stories, and why did you choose these 25 specific stories?
Well, look, the 25 stories mirror the 25 years. Although, having said that, not every year has a story. And that's obvious because some years are, say, for example, Olympic years, and there might be more stories than one as attributable to that year. 96 was a very good year for South African sport, for example. So what we really did is, rather than selecting the stories, we selected the categories. You'll see that the book is divided into 5 subheadings or 5 sections. You know, so they are in no particular order. The honeymoon section, for example, and the innovators section, and the hard times section. And then once we decided on the 5 sections, we slotted things into those sections, more or less chronologically, but not always chronologically. We also, it's important to say that, you know, we didn't want this book simply to be a rehashing of what we all already... Everyone has their memories of 1995 World Cup. And that story is fairly well known and well told. What we decided almost as an editorial decision from the beginning is we were going to go out and speak to people afresh. So in the case of Vuyani Bungu, the opening chapter, we spoke to Vuyani, we spoke to Mzee Mguni, we spoke to Rodney Berman, we spoke to people around them. And it's exactly the same with most other chapters. There are some exceptions. Some people wouldn't talk to us, and then we had to live on our wits as journalists. But we didn't want it to be a kind of a cynical book, which you deliver in October and you expect to go into Christmas stockings. So we wanted to throw fresh insights onto all these things and tell new stories within the context of historically these stories are already known, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for bringing us news of the book. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that, especially at this time, that it'll offer some kind of upliftment to South Africans at large, South African sport fans, of course, most importantly. Thank you very much, Mr. Luke Alfred. Vuvuzela Dawn, it is available right now from all leading book retailers, so get your hands on this very exciting book that features 25 inspiring South African sports stories that helped to shape our nation. Now, if you'd really, really like a copy for yourself, then you're in luck, because we have one book up for grabs, and all you have to do is SMS the keyword WIN with your full name to 33728, and the first name to be randomly drawn will be sent a copy of Vuvuzela Dawn. The competition is open and entries will close at 9 a.m. today. Free SMSs do not apply, and T's and C's can be found on our website, expressoshow.com. On that note, we'll take a quick break and we'll see you on the other side.